Welcome to Left Seat, Right Seat. We have Jason here today. He's
Yeah.
going to talk to us about his transition out of the military and into the civilian world and how he prepared for that. Sounds like he had a better time than most of us. But he has some words to say for people transitioning now and for going to that next job.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Hey.
Welcome.
Welcome. So, yeah, Jay, you want to give us a little backstory on that, on where you were at and when your transition started?
Yeah, so basically, I was in the Army for about 8 years, or I think total when I actually ETS was 8.5 years. But what my thing was I actually planned. I actually had a plan and a goal set about a year before that for me coming out. And so, just as background, I was an intelligence analyst in the Army. It was the first thing I did right out of high school. Never went to college, or didn't go to college, before I went right out of high school into the Army, particularly to pay for college. Ended up in Ranger Regiment, and then kind of stayed in special operations throughout my career. And then what happened for me particularly was about in 2005, which was about a year and a half before I actually ETS'd. I got married, and we decided that the military wasn't the way that we were going to raise a family. And so at that point, we really started looking and seeing, basically looking for that exit route out of the military, and just primarily because of deployments and just the constant being away from what would be my family. It just didn't kind of work out for what my wife and I had as a goal. So literally, I had that goal to get out a year before I actually had to ETS. Like these guys, like you guys were saying, I literally had some good time to plan for it, and was able to do that and kind of make it a very smooth transition, which I know is not what most people have popping out of the military.
Was she working too, or were you main breadwinner at the time? Or
Yeah, so my wife was working as well. She was a school teacher at one of the local schools in Fayetteville, where we got out.
All right, great.
okay.
And for your transition, we were talking. It was relatively easy, to say the least. Right, seeing as how you ended up in the same building.
Yeah.
Tell us how that worked out.
Yeah, so literally, I mean, how that happened was because, so I was in a community in the military, in the Army, that was very small. So I knew a lot of people, and we continued to see each other throughout our careers. So for the 8 years that I was there, I would see random people over and over and over again, and end up working with these same individuals. So we began to know each other more than just as someone who worked with someone for a year and then never saw them again or something like that, which is kind of standard in the military with all the PCSs and stuff. But I was able to have like a community around me, even within the Army. So it became known that I was getting out of the Army, and I was ETSing at a certain point. And so as that year went on, random people, from my past and from different careers and stuff would actually come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm getting out. Here's an opportunity that I have here for you to work with, or here's an opportunity for you here." And I had a good 3 or 4 people that actually came up and did that for me, during that year, those last couple of months, or whatever the time frame was exactly. But what I chose was something that would make it very easy of a transition for myself and for my wife at the time. And there was a contracting position open in the very same building for the very same unit that I was working at, my very last duty position.
That's like winning the lottery.
It was
Right.
but remember the time frame too, right? So this
Yeah,
is
I remember, yeah.
2005, 2006 time frame, and just DoD has money out the wazoo, right? So they're growing and things are happening. So
Contractor crazy, yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So again, that was kind of like you said, winning the lottery. So absolutely. So that happened, and so the contract manager who was there said, "Hey, Jason, I think you would be great for this position. You know exactly what we do and what we need to do." And so I was able to interview for that even before I got out of the Army. In fact, I think I even interviewed before my last deployment, and was turning down jobs because I had interviewed for this job, if my memory is correct. But yeah, so I had interviewed for that, even before I got out, and everything was really set up to be a smooth transition. And like I was telling you guys earlier, I basically worked on the second floor in a uniform when I was DOD. And on Friday, I left in that uniform, and on Monday, I showed up to the first floor in civies. And it was a very, very simple transition. I didn't even have to meet anybody new or anything like that. So very, very fortuitous for me to do that, and very, very easy compared to the stories I hear of people getting out nowadays. So yeah, definitely blessed in that respect.
So you probably didn't actually need a lot of the TAP stuff you probably had to go through just to get out. I mean, did you like take the tests and things like that, or did you kind of skip some of that stuff?
I don't even think that stuff was there
Really?
when I got out. From what I remember, yeah, there wasn't much that I actually had to do.
No. I got out in 2004, so I just remember taking all these tests and doing all these different things.
Yeah, I don't remember doing any of that. I mean, the only thing I
Interesting.
remember doing is literally I know I had to go talk to the reserves. I had to go talk to the medical. I had to get the medical checkout to see about disability and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, I didn't, and it may have been because of it may have been unit specific,
Sure.
or some units do more than other units maybe. But yeah, I don't remember doing a lot of stuff like that. You're definitely not taking tests or anything like that now.
So how long did you stay at that job then before you moved along?
So I stayed there for about 2 years, 2.5, 3 years there. And then again, my focus was family. So I was trying to get back to the West Coast, Southern California, where our extended family is. And so we were aiming for that so I started, this is kind of where I might be more relevant for folks getting out of the Army.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, that would be good. But I just wanted to hit some points that we were talking about earlier. So before we move to your other transition, which would help other people, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about there that you didn't really have to start at the bottom, right? Because you knew everybody, and they knew what you were capable of. So they asked you to do stuff that was outside the realm of your actual job title as a civilian, right? So can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, yeah. So I mean, it was just basically that's the case. Literally, like I said, the same building, the same people. Everybody knew everybody, and again, very small community, right? Very small. Like I was telling you guys earlier, my first chief warrant officer when I went into the Ranger Regiment, which was my first unit, was the same chief warrant officer when I left. Of course, he'd been promoted like 3 times, as have I. Right?
Hopefully you did too, yeah.
I did, right? So, yeah, and the same commander who was the commander of 75th Ranger Regiment at the time was the commander up until a few months before I ETS. So very, very small community. These people knew each other. We've literally been working with each other in my specific case for just about all 8 years of my military career.
Yeah.
So very different than what most people end up with. Um, and so, yeah, they knew me, and they would ask for help, knowing that Friday I was doing the job, right?
Right.
So they would ask for help. Hey, such and such, couldn't make it, or we just need somebody to fill this spot real quick. Can you do it? Absolutely. Um, and it wasn't so far outside of the realm of the contract, but it was basically, we need a hand. Can you help out? And I was able to pitch in and do a little extra duty, helping out individual, or helping out the unit mission, because of that camaraderie and that knowledge of each other's skills, that we already had.
Right. Yeah, I feel feels it was kind of the same for us, Jeff and I in aviation, right? Like it's like a super small like family as well, right? Like you go to one unit and you're like, hey, what's going on, right? Like, um, I mean, literally for me, I left Eustis and where I did AIT, ended up at Bragg, and my roommates in Eustis became my roommates at Bragg, right? Because we ended up the same spot, same unit, everything. Um, so I understand that, and like wherever we'd go, we'd find there's always somebody that we knew. Like especially for us with our unit, we deployed, not deployed, but we went TDY like everywhere up and down the East Coast, and then we were like, oh damn, we just lost a generator or something. Call up the unit, and they were like, oh hey, Sergeant Who, or Officer this and that, and like, remember us? We need this part. They're like, all right, we'll hook you up, right? But
Yeah.
so yeah, no, I definitely understand that, like this, and then the tight knit group of that as well. So that was good, and then yeah, so for then, like once you were getting out of there, and you were transitioning to your other position, how was that? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so that again was definitely more of a struggle. And what I started doing basically is, hitting USAJOBs, right? That's what everybody does.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So
That's a beast. That's a beast.
Yeah,
is a beast. And
Your KSA's got to have your KSAs, baby.
yeah,
on there right now.
and that was the thing that got to me, right? Because like I said, I was literally turning down GS-13 positions, at various units for various different people that I have known and I'd worked with in the past, and they're literally coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I got this spot for you. It's a great analyst position. It's a GS-13, da 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 da." And I'm like, "Oh man, sorry, I just took this position over here. This is what I'm going to work on," and stuff like that. So, so it was really a kick in the rear end when I'm applying to GS9s and GS7s and GS, whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you're not qualified." That
Yeah.
happened over and over and over again, right? And
Right.
so that's when I got frustrated. And literally one time I applied to this job at the State Department, and it was going to be an analyst, or they call it intelligence research specialist. And I was going to be helping investigate visa and passport fraud. And that was the duty position. I was going to be an analyst doing background, all that kind of stuff for that. And so I apply, bam, and they hit me back, and they're like, "You know what? You're not qualified." And I said, "This is," and this was a 9/11/12, right?
Right.
And so I'm sitting, and I just got fired up, and I picked up the phone, and I scrolled all the way down on USAJOBs, and I called the number, and I said, "Hey, I understand that I'm not qualified. That's great. Please, all I want to know is why I'm not qualified, so I can fix my resume, or so I can, do this correctly, because this is what I'm getting over and over and over is I'm not qualified."
So you were able to talk to a human.
Yeah.
That's
And,
incredible.
Well, so To be honest, my memory is a little vague on this and what exactly. I think I talked to a person, and she, or I left a message or something like that, right? But what happened next was I got a phone call from the person who was doing the hiring, and he basically, so this is what I imagine happened. Complete speculation here, but
Sure.
this is what I imagine happened: is that lady took my paperwork and said, "Hey, this guy just called, wants to know why he didn't make it." Put it on his desk. This guy's name was Tim, and so Tim looks at it and goes, "Oh," and he sees my resume and where I worked.
Right.
And he used to work in those same types of units.
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, I'm calling this guy back," because again, it was a lot of this small community, right? So I didn't know him. I'd never worked with him, and we were probably spaced out at 10 years in between his military service and mine.
Right.
But he knew units, and he knew the caliber of the people that come from those units,
Right.
or he had his opinion of them. And so he calls me directly and says, "Hey, do you still want that job?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so he set up an interview. We had an interview, and I got the position. But so that's one thing I would pass on to the guys you're trying to help, is don't just take that that first rejection that's automated, that just sits there. Scroll down to the bottom of USA Jobs and either email that person or call that number and figure out why. And be nice about it. Don't think that you're don't walk with your nose in the air. I'm too good for you. Why didn't you take me? But be good at be honest about it and say, "Hey, please, can you just help me? Why did I not get this so I can improve myself?"
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Did he actually tell you why, like initially maybe you didn't make the cut from the automated stuff? Did he
No.
let you know?
He didn't, and honestly,
Right.
I didn't ask because I was too happy about the interview.
Yeah, right. I mean, I get it. I
Yeah.
was just curious, like, what maybe stopped you from going through.
No, but what I did learn, and this is actually more recent. This past couple of months, I've been hitting USA Jobs again really hard, trying to get into something else. And I did the same thing. I started calling people and talking to people, and so I learned a little bit from that as well. But what you'll see in USA Jobs, and we could probably do a whole video on USA Jobs, but what you see in USA Jobs is they have this the words like you were saying, the KSAs, right? Knowledge, skills, and all that stuff on the announcement. But what they really care about is those questions that come after you do your resume, after you upload all your paperwork. They care about the answers to the questions that they pose in the application. And if your resume, not just the answers that you give, but if your resume doesn't match, doesn't show that you have done that or you have experience in that, they will automatically deny you.
Interesting.
So again, and I know this because I was offered a position, and it was a GS5, and I was like, okay, so why didn't I qualify for GS6? And so we went through this whole back and forth, and that's what I determined was the problem, because they gave me the question, and it said your resume doesn't reflect that you had this experience. So even though I answered the question and I said, yes, I have that experience, my resume didn't reflect it.
Wow.
Yeah. So another tip, like I was telling CJ a while back, is fill out. So you have to have a resume first, right, before you get to that point. But fill out the resume, do everything as you normally do, a specific resume for that job. Then take the assessment, is what they call it, where they have all the questions, and then go back and they allow you to change and update your resume. So update your resume based on the questions that they ask you, right? And so just so that you can see, or they can see when they're looking at it, that you have the information, or you have the experience, even though you check the box, yes, your resume doesn't reflect it. They're going to look at your resume before they look at your answer.
So you really got to have a game plan when you're doing USA jobs and almost tailor every single resume to that one job you're applying for.
I applied in the past 3 months. I applied to over 20 jobs.
Oh,
I wrote over 20 resumes.
Okay.
So absolutely, I write a specific resume every single time for every single job. And honestly, I didn't learn what I just told you guys. I didn't learn that till about 19 or 18. Resume 19 or 18. So
Nice.
I actually didn't do it. But
So you got fresh intelligence, people. All you veterans listening. This is brand new
that's right.
stuff.
And I
Right.
just learned it myself. But it's kind of frustrating to do that. And then sometimes it'll be funny because I did this here recently, and I wrote back to the person and said, hey, can you tell me why I did not qualify for this? And it was something like I totally messed up when I was reading it, and I didn't act. It was only available to like people in that unit or in that organization already, and I didn't see that. And she was like, you didn't get the job because you were in the or you're not in the organization. Kind of like, hey, dummy. But
I saw a lot of that at one point when I was applying. Like, this is not open to anyone outside of,
right.
Right.
this office or whatever. And you don't
Yeah.
see that. It's in the fine nitty gritty.
Yeah, so it's USA Jobs now it's pretty clear on the side, but they
Okay.
use these little icons, and sometimes and like I said, anything that I thought I was qualified for, boom, I hit it
Yeah.
and went with it.
Are you getting any traction right now?
Yeah, so I've actually been offered a position, and I am waiting for my security clearance and background checks to come back before I get a start date.
Gotcha.
That's a process unto itself, I imagine.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Those backgrounds, they take forever sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Waiting on mine right now.
Like over a year, right?
Right. Yeah. So so you're saying when you were going to the State Department job, you were planning for a year prior to that to get out?
So again, contractor is a little bit different. So I can just give them my 2 weeks.
Right.
But again, I made sure, and this is something else too, work with your leadership, right? So I made sure my leadership knew my goals and my plans when I started them. Now, they usually didn't have input. That was between me and my wife, or my wife and I. But we didn't, when we decided this is what we were going to do, I didn't keep it a secret. I went to my leadership and I was like, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing. I'm just giving you a heads up. And this does a couple things. One, they don't feel burned when you hand them a letter and say, oh, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. And they're like, what? You didn't even tell me anything, right? So one, there's the personal factor. But two, they're able to plan for replacing you. And now this is on the contract side, Army or civilian side. The DoD is a little bit different. They kind of already have that stuff worked in. Yeah, so I worked with my leadership. Even leaving the military, they knew for a year that I was getting out. And when I say they, there's key persons, right, that you work with. That you can trust and things like that. So like the contract manager, again, very close. I just worked with her for 3 years straight. And so I went to her and was like, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing. We're trying to get back to California to be with family. This is our plan. I'm looking for a new job. Got it. So everybody was kind of aware that was going on. And so, yeah, that
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I've never experienced anything like that.
Right.
That your command would even care.
It's a very specific situation because, again, not a lot of people have the environment that I came from in this special ops community. That we were so close, and there's a lot of special ops there that even you still don't have this type of close knit community that I had. I mean, I still talk to these people. In fact, when I started looking for jobs a couple months ago, those are the people I called.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
That chief warrant officer. I
That
called
network.
him up. Yeah,
All right.
that manager at at that contract position. I called her up and got new feedback and, hey, what's going on? What's happening in the hiring process? What's new out here? Is there any jobs opening up on the West Coast? All these types of things. So definitely don't burn those bridges. It's probably another reason to
Right.
keep people informed, because you never know when these people can help you do something again. So yeah. But I will say this is very unique. I was very blessed in my situation, and I completely understand that is not common. That a lot of folks don't have that opportunity and close-knit relationships with their leaders and their coworkers. But again, very blessed. So for me, it was easy. It was a lot easier.
Nice. Yeah, I mean,
Super cool.
that's that's the first time I heard that. Because I mean, true for me getting out, it was just like hey, I'm trying to beat the stop loss in 2 weeks, bro. Sign the papers. Right. So, and I literally beat stop loss by like 2 weeks. So
did CJ? Did you do the tap stuff? Did you go through all that?
I did. I went through it, and they were like, here's your resume, so set it up, sort it out, and everything else. But I think, like I told you, I didn't want to do work like. I didn't want to work on helicopters anymore. If I was going to be flying in them or flying on them, or flying in them, not on them, or flying them, or flying in them, I would have totally done that. Like, I would have went ahead and continued on that career. But I really wanted to get out, and I wanted to do animation and work with the art stuff that I've always enjoyed doing my whole life.
So you went the school track.
Yeah, so I went the school route, right, straight out.
Jason, you have your degree now? Did you end up getting your degree or your 30K that you signed up for?
I never saw 30K, but I spent 30K about.
Oh God, yeah.
So so I actually started right when I got out. I started taking online courses.
Okay.
And
I wasn't sure if maybe you did it, while you were active or anything like that. You probably didn't have any time.
No, I didn't. But here's something else. I'm sure, they tell you this in your courses and in getting out, but in case they don't, a lot of your AIT, I'm not going to say a lot. For me, it was a lot, but I know I was a soft skill, and I had, it was Intel, and it was a lot of studying and researching and things like that. So a lot of all the things that I did and all the classes that I had actually counted for a good portion of credits when you go to school.
That's great.
So there's a means to do that, and your school should be able to help you out with that in finding out what you did in the military and how that compares to classes that they have. So I really didn't have a lot of core classes to take when I got through. I think I had like maybe 50 credits or something, like 20 credits, somewhere in that ballpark. Either way, the only things that I really had to go back and take was like math class and writing class and something like that. But my general ed pretty much was completed with military training and things like that.
Great.
So
Yeah,
that helps.
Yeah, don't go to a for-profit school, guys, because none of that shit counted for me. Just saying. And I asked.
Unless that's what you want to do.
Yeah. They were like, oh, yeah, we don't have the program that allows you to transfer your credits. And I was like, no, but everybody does. They're like, yeah, we're not a state college, and this is for profit. So give us the money, and we'll let you stay and study. So
yeah, but here's something else. Here's another way you can kind of tweak the system, is because that I started with one college both the colleges that I went to were they were very ingrained with the military, and that was basically their customer base, right?
Right.
So either of them had it. But what you could do, like for you, what I would do, again, this takes planning though, right? This takes foresight and knowledge of what you're going to do. But you could possibly go to one of these online classes or online schools and basically do all that front load work. And then once they figured out what it is, now you're just transferring credits from one school to another. You're not taking all that Army lingo and having, you know, some private institution who's never seen a military soldier in their classroom figure out what all that means, right? So there's ways to kind of get around the system and figure it out. So take a class, 2 classes at this online thing, you know, maybe some of your general education, and then once you're ready to get that final degree or ready to do what you're going to do, then you pop over to a school that, you know, caters to what you want to do. And like I said, then you're just transferring credits. You're not speaking 2 different languages.
So that military type university took your military training and translated the credits for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that was just after like 1 semester of an online course, right?
Yeah, I basically sent them a list of all the classes I took in the military, and they basically came back and said, okay, so you're basically good for X amount of credits.
Right.
And yeah, it was pretty simple process.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, I bet. I mean, they're used to doing it, so.
Right. For them, it was easy, and they probably know all the MOSs or whatever you call them nowadays, and all that type of stuff. And it's just like easy. They know, oh, an Intel guy, he has background in this. Oh, a truck driver, oh, he has background in this. And so it's pretty easy transition over. And this was 2006, so I'm sure it's even more fluid now.
You would hope, right?
Yeah, we'd hope.
Yeah. So speaking
Let
of that,
us know out there.
Yeah, I was just wondering now if the chefs, they get culinary credits if they go to a culinary school. Like, I'm pretty sure they should. I just don't know if they do. That might be a good question to ask somebody that, you know. But I don't know. That's just me thinking off the cuff right there. But yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, and I think you used both GI Bills, right? The Montgomery and the 9/11. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah. So for me, what happened was, here's my story. It took me 10 years to get a 4-year degree. All right. I'm not a very bright individual, but I started in 2006. When I got out, I would take a class here and there. I'd push really hard for a while, and something in life would come up, and I would stop, and then I'd push again, and then I would stop. And so I literally just got my degree less than 2 years ago, finishing it up. But in the meantime, it had switched over for the Montgomery GI Bill to the 9/11. And again, it was very easy for me because I was in a school, and it's American Military University, if anyone's wondering. And they were very, very helpful. And I basically just went to them and said, hey, switch me over. Nice. And it happened. So very, very easy. Again, another very fluid process for me, because I was going to a school that was catering to military. They knew all the stuff that was happening, and they knew how to work with it. And it was real easy for me, just a matter of emails and maybe signing some paperwork here and there. And that switched over. And I ended up I think I used just about all of it, up until I graduated in August of 2017. I probably have a couple bucks left in there, but it's not paying for anything right now.
Right.
Where did you get your degree in, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, BA in political science.
Okay. So have you seen that I guess my question is about some of the military universities, right? How is it seen in the civilian sector, or does it even come up? They're like, oh, you went to American Military University. I mean, like, Why didn't you go to Harvard?
Yeah. No,
I,
I didn't get a lot of that.
okay.
But here's kind of what my personal opinion is
Sure.
with degrees, and it's basically something to rule people out.
Yeah.
It's an
Check the
easy
block
way to
item.
rule people out, right? So it's in the herd. So honestly, I don't think, especially if you're staying within the government realm, I think they're more concerned with your experience. But now, and again, I'm fresh off the path on this because I was literally up until a month ago hitting resumes like crazy and applying on USAJOBs. I've seen it a lot now where you need a combination of experience and education. And if I'm wrong, is usually a bachelor's degree. So and to get the higher end. So a lot of the jobs that come out of USAJOBs, if folks watching don't know, they'll be like 9, 11, 12, a GS step level, kind of like your rank. And the better you qualify, you may be able to go start, instead of starting at the bottom rung at a 9, you may be able to start at an 11 or something like that. So with that degree, it might help you bump up, a pay grade or something like that, if that's what the job calls for, the description. So it does help a little bit. But honestly, once they saw that you had a degree, I never had a question as to where does this school come from. It was like, oh, he's got a bachelor's, check the block, right?
Sure.
So that was kind of where it was. Now, I don't know. I only applied to a few jobs that were outside of the government realm, and I couldn't tell you if they looked at it and said, oh yeah, this isn't Harvard, this isn't UCI, this isn't, something, who cares about this guy, right? So I couldn't tell you if any of them did that, and that was the reason that I was disqualified from these positions or something like that. So yeah, inside the government, I think it's more of a check the block. They're eligible, or they meet the requirements, and let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, degree in poli sci. Are you running for mayor anytime soon, or anything like?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I'm just I'm really not so much politics, but policy.
Okay.
Is very, very interesting to me, very important to me. I love seeing or learning about how governments interact and how government policy forms cultures and societies and the way people operate and things like that. So that was very interesting to me going through that. And honestly, that's a benefit that I had. I actually started in 2006. I started, my degree was in intelligence analysis, or what I intended to get. But then after a while, I was like, all right, Intel, but you know what? I already have a job, and Intel really doesn't interest me as much as this. So I was able to pick something that I wanted to do.
And I think that's great to even that
Yeah.
you just said that, right? You can get a job doing things, but when you get education, you should probably do something you want to do.
Right.
Because you're going to sit there in 4 years and study it, right? So, or depending on, 2 to 20 years, who knows?
And it was definitely not a chore, right? So because I enjoyed it, I enjoyed learning about Aristotle and Plato and all these guys. It was really a joy for me to do that. Now my chemistry class was a little bit different, but that you had to take. Right? But
I understand.
Yeah, the real stuff that you have to do for the degree was a lot of fun. Again, for me,
Sure.
because I was able to do that. So again, just another tip for guys out there. Even if you start something, find something that you want to do, and then it won't be a chore. And I had no reason to go back 9 years later and start taking college classes again. But you know what? I only had a few classes to do, and I was waiting for a security clearance to come in, and I was like, I got time on my hands, so let's do it. And
All right.
I finished it up, so that was good.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think doing all those many years of Intel analysts analyzing also, made a little pathway or made it easier for you to analyze all the political stuff.
Yeah, analysis is fun in itself for me. So, but yeah, it was like I said, it was really fun, and it's something that I use, right? Because I like it, I talk to people about it, or I have conversations about it, and it interacts with almost anything, right? So I'm also, big into Catholicism, right? And so I can see how all that natural law that I studied in that poli-sci course, it really interacts with, religion and Catholicism and how it all kind of ties together. And so it was really fun for me to do that. And I was able to combine the two. And I didn't call it a thesis paper, but my final paper for the bachelor's degree, I was able to combine it. And I did the minimum wage, which is public policy, right? And I said, how does the minimum wage compare to Catholic doctrine and Catholic teaching? And this sounds like a chore, but I was able to go through and study 200 years of Catholic teaching on wage policy and employment and all this kind of stuff, and apply that to this public policy thing. And so I wrote a 20 some odd page paper, and it was fun, right?
That's not a last minute paper.
Yeah.
That's not one you write the night before.
No. So, but it was, again, and it just sounds like I'm saying this over and over and over, but everything was planning, and the more planning you can do and the more foresight you have, the better your transitions are going to be, the better your product, your end product, whatever you're going to do is going to be, because you're able to plan out, foresee it, and work through steps in getting there. So that's probably the key message to my whole.
It's a great message. I hope people are able to take advantage of that when they're transitioning now or going to the next job like you've done in the past.
Yeah. No, something popped in my head. I was like, oh, there you have it, guys, from a guy who did a whole bunch of planning in the military to tell you should plan to get out, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely works, right? I would agree. Like, the planning part is definitely important. Like, if you get out without a plan, it's just like you do anything else. You're just lost, right? If you're going out with your buddies one night, like, you don't know where you're going, then you're like, let's go to this bar, and then you end up at two different bars, and you're like, hey, this didn't happen right? So,
if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right.
I know you guys are bringing up a famous quote. It's not famous, but a quote that I read from Napoleon, and he was basically writing a letter in, like, I think it was 1890 or 1790 or something, and he was writing a letter to one of his generals, and he tells the generals, he's like, you know what? When you look at successful generals, people will often say that they were lucky, but the word he used was chance. They have good chance. It was a chance that they got the thing. But he said, when you actually look at what those generals did, you will find they did everything to prepare for that success. And that's kind of where my definition of luck is, the intersection of preparation and opportunity, right? And so that's how I look at everything. I have to be prepared for the opportunity. I can't have the opportunity jump up at me and I can't take it, right? So I'm not ready to take advantage of it. So you have to have that preparation, even if you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but because you have the preparation, you are able to react better to any opportunity that comes your way. So, I mean, it's a great quote. And literally, I read the book, I don't know, years and years ago, and then I reread it here recently. And ever since I reread it the second time, it's been like a mantra in my life, is to prepare and to be able to take advantage of that opportunity.
I feel like your whole military career also blended or distilled into that sentence too, as in, like, that's what you tried to make happen your entire military career.
Yeah,
knowing a little bit more about what you did than what we're saying. So
yeah, and it was a lot of planning, like CJ said, and it was a lot of reading, right? And so here's the other thing that, when I did deploy over to Afghanistan or wherever, I didn't just go over there, right? I went over there and I started reading, and I started reading the history of, the Cold War, and how Russia and the US, Pakistan and Afghanistan and Iran, and how all those different regions and countries played a part in the mess that is Afghanistan right now,
Yeah.
or back then, right? And so you have to know that, hey, the guy we're looking at over here, the major Taliban guy over here, he was shaking hands with Ronald Reagan a couple of years ago, or George Bush, or whoever it was back in the day, right? And I'm not saying anything political about it. I'm just saying that those people have been around for a while, and we're stepping into their knowledge and their background, and so we have to be prepared for that. So yeah, you're right. I saw that firsthand over there. I had to get prepared to deal with people who've been doing this in their hometown for years and years and years and years and years. And so that's actually what got me into reading a lot of these military books, is that honestly, it was 9/11, because before that, it was, the Army was something different. I was looking at order of battles of large units and all this type of stuff, which
you were gonna fight in the Fulda Gap.
exactly, and we're not seeing that anymore, right? So yeah, maybe. But even in Iraq, we thought that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. We had to prepare for that. And I personally had to prepare for that and seek that background knowledge and get in there so I can even be functional when I was over there. And so you start reading books on strategy and all these different types of things that get you ready for that, and to be able to predict, put your mind in the shoes of the enemy. And honestly, that's the same thing you're doing here. You're going for a job, put your mind in the shoes of the person you're applying with. How do you get there? What does that person want? What do you need to show them you have, right? Again, it's not just what's on that KSAs on the application or the job announcement. It's really what they want is in the application questions, right? So now that you know that, you can help show that person how you qualify for that position. And you help yourself and you help them, because if you do truly qualify for that position, it's going to be a win-win, right? So
excellent.
Preparation. Yep. Yeah.
That's a lot of great information. A lot of great information, man. We're going to have you back a couple more times, maybe every week.
I don't know. We're going to run out of stuff to talk about.
Well, I have a question based on what you're saying, you being a reader and reading a lot of books. Is there any book that you like, or, multiple books for just veterans in general, like after the fact, after having been to combat and stuff like that? I know there's other stuff out there. I could throw stuff out, but is there anything you've read beyond, your other preparation books?
Yeah. So here's, I read generally 2 or 3 things, right? And it's been through phases. So a lot of it was on policy, politics, all that kind of stuff. A lot of it is currently, and has been for quite a long time, on self-improvement and getting my mind right and getting all kinds of things. And the other one is religion. And so I'll start with religion, because the Bible is always the place to go for answers, for me, definitely. And I can see how it relates to everything and everywhere. So I would start there. But a book that I have come to read, and I don't reread books very often, but I've read this book twice, and I read it recently. It's called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Okay.
And it is a great book that helps you to understand habits. And then once you understand habits, you can understand how to train yourself to do good habits and untrain your bad habits, right? And again, if you look at things, and this goes perfectly with Napoleon. And I know Napoleon is not like the perfect nice guy who's all moral, but when you see smart people, there's a reason that he became the emperor of Europe, right?
Right.
So but it goes with that, because Napoleon hits it right on the head. He said that general did everything he could to prepare for that opportunity, right? And when you look at things like habits, and you look at saying you need to prepare yourself for what's going on there, right? So if you don't have the right habits to prepare yourself, if you don't have the right habits to do things, and if, more particularly, if you don't look inward and you look outward, you can't fix the guy out there, right? I can't tell you what questions to ask me, right? But I could sit down, a couple days before and ask CJ, hey, what questions you guys gonna ask me, so I can think about these things, so I can prepare for this, so I can kind of have answers. We can rehearse before we actually start rolling tape on this, right? So we can prepare. I can control that, but I can't control what you ask. So if I can control my habits, and I know that my habits are tuned into things, and I can operate and function myself, I don't have to rely on the people outside of me. And when something goes wrong, I don't look at the other person and say, darn, how did that person hose me up? I look at me and I say, okay, how can I change this habit, or how could I make this better? And I think that's another important thing as well, is if you look to blame other people, it may be therapeutic for a while, but it's not going to do much for you. And in the long run, you have to say, how can I fix this situation? How can I prepare to get out of the military? How can I prepare to attack USAJOBs? How can I prepare to do whatever it is you want to do? How can I make that better, right? So that's kind of what that book drove home for me.
Sure.
It really showed you that you can basically control any behavior. So if you're an alcoholic, it goes through alcoholics or alcoholism and addictions, and it says, hey, people who have been addicted have changed their habits, and here's how. People who have habits of chewing their nails off, whatever the habit may be, he goes through all of that and basically paints a picture of how to get around that, and how to fix that, and work within yourself, because again, you can't change anybody else, but you can definitely work on yourself and fix yourself. And then once you fix yourself, then the world will seem a different place to you, because it doesn't kind of matter. And another smart guy, if you guys know Tony Robbins, who was another coach, Tony Robbins says something very similar. I heard him in a speech one time, or a talk that he was giving, and he basically said, hey, if you have a problem with your wife, fix yourself before you get a divorce. If you have a problem with your boss, fix yourself before you quit your job. If you have a problem with blah, 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 fix yourself before you do anything else. So again, key words, it's key information that I think is really crucial to people being successful in whatever the endeavor may be.
All right. Good stuff.
Well
Good stuff.
spoken, man. Well spoken.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. It's outstanding.
Oh,
I mean,
Yeah.
CJ and I have been talking off and on over the years, right? And a lot of the people we talk about are from our unit and the things we did in our, doing medevac stuff, right? And so it's cool. Like, I knew about you back in the day. I think CJ and I were hanging out in Hinesville, right, and just sitting on our duffs playing PlayStation for a month straight, waiting for missions, right? And you were off doing the good work. So, thanks for what you did. And thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
not a problem, guys. We're glad to help, and hopefully this venture works out for you guys here.
Yeah, thanks. Well, one last thing. I remember how Mom stopped me from chewing my nails. Hot sauce under the fingernails and a smack on the head every time she saw me. Those change habits really fast. Just saying. Might not be the best way.
The express method.
It's definitely not a self-changing habit. That's an outside force changing your habits. But if you want to change your own habits, I say go the route that Jason was talking. So that was definitely good. And And then that was just what, as soon as you said, like, how do you stop chewing your nails, this first thing that popped in my head. I was like, oh yeah, pepper under the fingernails. That always works.
That wasn't me. That was all something I plagiarized and reworded from Charles Duhigg there. So definitely, I've recommended that book to probably 10 people in the month or so that I finished reading it again. So it's a really good book. Highly suggest you pick it up, and
Nice.
just any books really that work on improving yourself, is good, because that's really the only thing we can change. We can't change anything else. And once you change that, once you're happy with you, nothing else can mess with you. So.
All right, cool. Yeah, so if you can send us some of those, some links to some of those books, we'll put them in the description for everybody, and we'll have that way they can go read it themselves if they're interested. And also for me, if they have it on the audio book section, that'd be even better, because for me mostly, I just don't have the. Not to say let me correct myself. It's not that I don't have the time to sit down and read. It's just that I don't want to spend the time to sit down and read anymore. I have so much other things going on. I normally listen to those while I'm at work, or if I'm at or if I'm here editing or doing something else, or driving, especially seeing as how the commutes in LA are long.
Yeah.
So, to put it nicely.
I do have it on audio because that's how I listen to it both times. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I kind of want to get
So
on.
we'll have book links for readers and audio links for listeners, and then
Right.
they probably haven't made the movie yet, but maybe it's coming.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that really likes the book. But I always try to look for one thing whenever I read a book or anything. I look for one thing to kind of take away from the book and use it to kind of change. And I went through a period where that's really all I did was read self-improvement books, and I would try to take just one thing. But that book has kind of popped up in my head over and over and over again. And the one thing is so important. It's fix your own habits, right? And it's really good. It's really good in showing you that each and every one of us has the opportunity to do that. And all we have to do is work at it and get it going. So it's a really good book.
Right. I think that it goes towards one of the things that I learned, and now I do teach in my martial art classes, is the 1% better every day, right? So, and for martial arts, it's easy, right? Like, be 1% better every day. By the end, for a couple of years, a couple 100 days, you're 100% better, right? At throwing your jab or throwing whatever, sinking in an arm bar, or a collar choke or some kind of thing, whatever it is that you're doing. So that's what resonated with me when you said that, is the whole, make yourself better every day. All right. So you can just keep improving yourself in any aspect of whatever, so. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, man. So, is there anything else you would like to say or mention, Jay?
I'm good, man. I think I've talked your ears off. So
No, it was good for me.
I'm ready to go have dinner.
Yeah. Cool. And yeah, so just to let you guys know, yeah, Jason's actually my brother. And if you look at his bookshelf, it's a lot of actual books. If you look at my bookshelf, it's a lot of books, but they're art books, right?
They're comic books.
So that's why I'm the artist in the family, and he's the smart poli sci guy, right? But yeah, it's good times, and thanks for having me. Thanks for coming on and helping us out with this. It's I think it was really good. Like, you had a lot of great insights, and I do want a link to some of those books that you were talking about. I'm pretty sure everybody knows the Bible,
Yeah.
even if they're not Christian, Catholic, whatever religion. So yeah, we could also link something down there for that. All right. Cool. Thanks, man. Anything you want to close out with, Jeff?
I think we're good to go. We'll probably see Jason again talking about real estate at some point.
Right.
And we'll move on from there. Yeah, I don't have anything else right now. I think we covered a lot, and some of the tips we got today, I think you may not hear anywhere else. But when it comes to USA Jobs and getting a job and doing your transition, you're well, you heard it here. Planning is the best way to go. So
Right.
thanks again to Jason for that.
Yeah.
Guys.
Cool. Thanks, bro. And you got one last thing you want to say, or you good to go? You said it all.
Oh, yeah, I said it all, man.
Cool. Sweet. Well, thank you guys for coming back to visit us here on Let's See Right Seat. And stick around for next week. We'll have some more good content for you guys then. And we will be signing off now. Have a good one. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Let's See Right Seat. If you liked what you heard, just go ahead, hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends. And come back next week for another episode. And also follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all your other podcast venues. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you again later. Bye.
See ya.